I smiled at my sister's wedding. Everything felt normal until a guy whispered, "You really don't know, do you?" Then I realized they were together before he. I didn't go there planning to ruin anything. I need to say that clearly because people keep rewriting that part for me, like I showed up with some kind of speech ready, like I had been waiting for the perfect moment to destroy her. I didn't. I went because I was tired. Tired of arguing with my parents, tired of hearing the same line over and over again like it was supposed to fix everything. "She's still your sister." Like that erased what actually happened. My sister's name is Tara Long. She's 3 years older than me, and for as long as I can remember, she's been the one people notice. Not in an exaggerated way, just naturally. We grew up in Benton, Arkansas, and everything kind of revolved around her without anyone ever saying it out loud. My mom, Anne, works as a counselor and has always been big on keeping the peace, keeping things calm, making sure nothing escalates. My dad, Ted, is a driver and he avoids conflict like it's something dangerous. So in our house, things stayed quiet. And when things are quiet, the louder personality takes over without resistance. That was Tara. She had this way of making people feel like she belonged wherever she was. Teachers liked her, neighbors remembered her, and she could talk to anyone without effort. I was the opposite. I stayed out of the way, did what I was supposed to do, didn't create problems. I didn't even realize I was shrinking, it just felt normal. That was my role. At first, none of that felt like a real issue. It was just how things were. The problem was, it didn't stay in childhood. It followed us into everything else. In college, I started figuring myself out a little. Nothing dramatic, just small decisions that felt like mine. I got into design, started caring about how things looked, how they felt. I remember spending weeks choosing this really specific dark shade for my hair, almost black but not quite. It sounds small, but it felt like something I chose for myself without anyone influencing it. A month later, I went home for a weekend, and Tara opened the door with the exact same hair. Same shade, same tone, same style. I laughed because what else was I supposed to do? I said, "Wow, we match now," and she just shrugged and said, "It's just a color." So I let it go. That's how it always worked. It was always small enough to ignore. After I graduated, I moved to Plano, Texas. I got a design job at a mid-sized company, nothing huge, but it was mine. My first real step into something that felt like my own life. Moving there felt like breathing for the first time. New place, new routine, no constant comparisons. Just space. For about 3 months, that space actually existed. Then my mom called me one night and said Tara had been thinking about a change. I didn't think much of it. People move all the time. But then Tara called me herself and said, "Guess what? I'm coming to Plano." I remember sitting on my bed just staring at the wall, trying to make myself feel excited. I said, "That's cool, because that's what I always say." She moved fast. Found a place within weeks. Not just in the same city, but the same area. Close enough that we could run into each other without planning it. My parents loved it. They kept saying we'd be close again, like that was automatically a good thing. I didn't argue. I just adjusted. Tara built her life there the way she always does, quickly and visibly. She got into modeling, started doing shoots, meeting people, building a social circle. It fit her perfectly. She knew how to be seen. I kept my life smaller. Work, routines, a few people I trusted. We saw each other sometimes, coffee here and there, nothing deep. And for a while, it felt manageable. Or at least I convinced myself it was. Then I met Matt. I met him at a gym near my apartment. I had started going just to get out of my head after work, and he was one of the trainers there. At first it was just casual. One day he told me I was lifting too fast and said I'd hurt myself. I told him I'd just get stronger faster, and he laughed and said that's not how it works. It was easy with him. That's the best way to explain it. He wasn't overwhelming. He didn't need attention the way Tara did. He listened. He asked questions and actually cared about the answers. We started talking more, then getting coffee, then going on actual dates. Nothing dramatic, nothing intense, just steady. And after everything in my life feeling either loud or quietly competitive, steady felt safe. We dated for about a year. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. He met my parents once when they visited. My dad liked him immediately. My mom did her usual thing where she smiles and observes without saying much. Tara met him twice, once at dinner and once briefly another time. She was friendly, maybe a little overly friendly, but that was just her personality, so I didn't question it. Looking back, that's the part that bothers me the most. I didn't question anything. The first real shift didn't come from Tara. It came from Matt. He didn't change all at once. That would have been easier. It was gradual. His texts started taking longer. Conversations got shorter. It felt like I was talking to someone who was already halfway gone. I asked him once if we were okay. He leaned back and said he just had a lot going on with work, that he was stressed. I nodded and accepted it, even though it didn't feel right. Weeks passed like that, with this quiet distance growing between us. Until one night he asked if we could talk. We were sitting in his car outside my apartment, engine off, just silence. He said he didn't think it was working anymore. No real explanation, just that he didn't see it long term. I remember staring straight ahead, trying to process it. I asked what he meant, and he just repeated himself in different words. That was it. A year of something steady reduced to a few sentences. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just said okay. Because part of me thought reacting would only confirm whatever reason he already had. So I let him go. Quietly. If it had ended there, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe I would have just moved on like people expect you to. But it didn't end there. Because what I didn't know at the time, what nobody told me, was that something else had already started. And I was the only one who hadn't seen it yet. For a while after the breakup, everything just felt flat. Not dramatic, not explosive, just quiet in a way that made everything feel heavier. I went back to my routine like nothing had happened. Work, gym, home. Repeat. People at the office didn't really notice anything was off, except maybe Grace. She sat across from me and had this way of watching without asking too much. One afternoon she looked at me and said, "You're way too calm for someone who just ended a year-long relationship." I shrugged and said, "Guess I processed it already." She didn't believe me. I could tell. But she didn't push. That's the thing about me. I don't fall apart where people can see it. I just compress everything down until it stops moving. I stopped going to the gym after that. Not because I was avoiding Matt exactly, but because it felt contaminated. Like every corner had some memory attached to it. I didn't want to run into him. Didn't want to pretend to be okay in front of someone who had already decided I wasn't enough long term. So I stayed away. Weeks turned into a couple of months. Life didn't get better, but it got quieter. Manageable. I started convincing myself that maybe it really was just one of those things. People grow apart. It happens. Then one night, I was lying in bed, just scrolling mindlessly through my phone, not even paying attention to what I was looking at. And then I saw it. It was a photo. Rooftop bar, city lights in the background, that warm orange glow from string lights overhead. And right in the center of it, Tara and Matt. Standing close. Too close. Her hand on his chest. His arm around her waist. The caption said something like, "Finally found my person." I remember staring at it for a long time. Not reacting, not moving, just staring. Because my brain was trying to catch up to what my eyes were already seeing. At first, I thought maybe it was old. Maybe I missed something. Maybe they had known each other longer than I realized. But the comments told a different story. "You guys are perfect together. About time you made it official. Called it months ago." Months. I sat up so fast I almost dropped my phone. Months. I checked the date. It was recent. Just posted. And suddenly every small, ignored detail started lining up in a way that made me feel sick. The way Tara had been extra friendly the last time they met. The way Matt had started pulling away without explanation. The timing. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't bad timing. It wasn't, we just connected after. It was already happening. And I had been the only one standing there thinking everything was normal. I don't even remember deciding to call her. I just did. She answered on the second ring like nothing was wrong. "Hey," she said, casual, light, like we had just talked yesterday. I didn't say hi back. I just asked, "Since when?" There was a pause. Not long, but enough. "Since when what?" she said, but it sounded like she already knew. "Since when are you with Matt?" Another pause. Then a small exhale. "It just happened," she said. That phrase. Like it explained anything. "After we broke up?" I asked. She hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. "We didn't plan it," she said quickly. "We just started talking more and..." "Before or after?" I cut in. Silence. Then, quieter, "It's not like that." That's when I felt it. Not anger exactly. Something colder. Like everything just locked into place. "Before," I said. She didn't confirm it. She didn't deny it either. She just said, "You can't control who you fall for." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do with that. "You couldn't control not texting your sister's boyfriend?" I said. "It wasn't like that," she repeated, but there was something defensive in her voice now. Of course there was. Because she knew. "Did he tell you he was going to leave me?" I asked. "No. Did you know things were bad between us?" Another pause. "I mean, he talked about being unsure sometimes," she said carefully. There it was. That quiet, invisible overlap. She didn't take him after. She was already there while it was breaking. I felt stupid. Not just hurt, but stupid. Like I had been standing in the middle of something obvious and just refused to see it. "I hope it's worth it," I said. She didn't respond right away. Then she said, softer, "I didn't do this to hurt you." But she did. Whether she meant to or not didn't change the outcome. I hung up after that. No screaming. No dramatic ending. Just silence. After that, things shifted in a way that felt permanent. I stopped seeing her. Not intentionally at first, but I just didn't reach out. And she didn't either, not in any real way. A few texts here and there, surface level, like we were pretending everything was normal without actually saying it. My parents found out, of course. Not the full story. Just enough. My mom called me one evening, voice already tense. "I heard you talk to Tara," she said. "Yeah." She said things got a little heated. That was her way of describing it. I didn't correct her. "She's really happy," my mom continued. "You have to understand that sometimes things happen and you can't hold on to anger forever." I sat there listening to that, feeling something twist in my chest. "So I'm supposed to just be okay with it?" I asked. "I'm saying your sisters," she replied. "This doesn't have to ruin everything." But it already had. They just didn't want to admit it. My dad didn't say much when I talked to him. He just sighed and said, "It's complicated." That was his version of support. Life kept moving after that. Work got busier. I got more responsibilities, more projects, more reasons to stay distracted. From the outside, I looked fine. Probably better than fine. Inside, it felt like something had shifted permanently. Like I had been replaced in a way that wasn't just about a relationship, but about something deeper. Time passed. Months. And just when things started to feel distant enough to ignore, Tara called me again. This time, she sounded different. Excited. "I have news," she said. I already knew what she was going to say before she said it. "I'm engaged." To him. Of course she was. And somehow, that still hit harder than I expected. Because it meant it wasn't temporary. It wasn't messy or complicated or something that might fall apart. It was permanent. Real. Something they were proud of. She waited for me to react. I swallowed whatever was building in my throat and said, "Congrats." And I meant it. Or at least, I meant that I wasn't going to fight it anymore. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought I could step back, keep my distance, let them have whatever they built out of whatever they did. But then she said something that made everything tighten again. "I want you to be my maid of honor." I actually laughed. Not loud, not dramatic, just this short, disbelieving sound. "You're serious?" I asked. "You're my sister," she said, like that explained everything. "I want you there with me." Like none of it had happened. Like I could just step into that role and pretend I hadn't been standing on the other side of it. I said no. Immediately. "No, I can't do that." There was a pause. Then her tone shifted slightly. "Why not?" I almost couldn't believe she asked that. "You really don't understand why?" I said. "I don't want this to come between us," she replied. But it already had. That wasn't the problem. The problem was she didn't see it that way. I held my ground that night. I said no, clearly, more than once. And for a moment, I thought that was it. But then my parents got involved. And that's when it stopped being a request. It became pressure. And I knew this wasn't over. My mom called the next morning like it was urgent. Not in a loud way. Not yelling. Just that tight, controlled tone she uses when she's already decided what the outcome should be. "I heard you told Tara no," she said. I did. A pause. "Then, you need to rethink that." Need to. Not should. Not maybe. Need. I sat on the edge of my couch, staring at the floor, already feeling that familiar pressure building in my chest. "I'm not comfortable being part of her wedding," I said. "I think that's fair." "She's your sister," my mom replied immediately, like she had been waiting to say it. "This is one day. You don't have to agree with everything to support her." Support her. That word kept coming up, like it only worked one direction. "What about me?" I asked. Another pause, shorter this time. This isn't about choosing sides. But it was. It always had been. My dad called later that afternoon. He didn't argue the same way my mom did. He just sighed a lot, like the situation itself was inconvenient. "Your mom's upset," he said. I figured. She just wants everyone to be okay. I almost laughed at that. Not because it was funny, but because it felt so disconnected from reality. "Everyone's not okay," I said. "That's the problem." He didn't respond to that directly. He just said, "It would mean a lot to her if you were there." Her. Not me. Not us. Just her. By the end of that week, I was worn down. Not convinced. Not healed. Just tired of being the one holding the line while everyone else acted like it wasn't there. So I said yes. Not because I wanted to. Not because I forgave anything. Just because I didn't have the energy to keep saying no. When I told Tara, she sounded relieved. "I knew you'd come around," she said, like it was inevitable. I didn't correct her. I just said, "I'll be there." And that was that. From that moment on, everything started moving fast. Wedding planning, group chats, fittings, schedules. Tara threw herself into it completely. Colors, themes, venues, guest lists. It became her entire world. I stayed on the edges of it. I showed up when I had to. Responded when I was asked. Did what was expected. But I never felt like I was part of it. The first time something really hit me was during a dress fitting. We were standing in this boutique, mirrors everywhere, fabric and pins and soft lighting. Tara was trying on different options, turning, smiling, asking for opinions. At one point, she stepped out in this specific shade for the bridesmaids' dresses. Muted, warm, almost neutral. My stomach dropped a little, because I had saved that exact color palette months before. Back when Matt and I used to have those casual conversations about the future. Not serious plans, just ideas. Things we liked. I had shown it to Tara once. Just in passing. A random conversation. And now it was here. On her wedding. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Colors are colors. Trends overlap. People pick similar things all the time. So I smiled and said, it looks good. That's what I kept doing. Smiling. Nodding. Agreeing. The venue made it worse. She chose a place in Stowe, Vermont. Destination wedding. Scenic, quiet, expensive. The kind of place people post about. When she sent the link in the group chat, my chest tightened. Because I recognized it immediately. It was the same place Matt and I had looked at once. Not seriously, not booked or anything, just scrolling through options and joking about if we ever did something like this. I hadn't told Tara that part. At least, I didn't think I had. But now I couldn't be sure. I stared at my phone for a long time before responding. Everyone else was excited. Heart emojis, comments about how beautiful it was, how perfect it fit her. I typed, looks great, and sent it. That became my role. Neutral. Supportive. Invisible. The closer the wedding got, the harder it was to ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. It wasn't just the big things. It was the small details. The way Tara described Matt in conversations sometimes sounded familiar. Specific phrases. Certain ways of explaining things that I had heard before in private moments. At one point, she showed me part of her vows. Just to get your opinion, she said. I stood there reading them, trying to keep my expression steady. Because some of the lines, they felt like echoes. Not identical, not copied word for word, but close enough that it made my skin feel tight. Things I had said. Things we had talked about. I handed the paper back and said, they're good. She smiled, satisfied. I didn't say anything else. What would I even say? That it felt like I was watching pieces of my life being rearranged and presented back to me as something new? That it didn't feel like coincidence anymore? There was no version of that conversation that didn't make me look like the problem. So I stayed quiet. Again. The week of the wedding, we all flew out to Vermont. The venue was exactly how it looked in the photos. Wide open views, soft light, everything curated to look perfect without trying too hard. Guests were arriving, people greeting each other, energy building. I moved through it all like I was slightly disconnected. Smiling when people talked to me, answering questions, doing what was expected. Tess, you okay? Grace had texted me the night before the rehearsal. She couldn't come, but she knew enough to know this wasn't easy. I'm fine, I typed back. It was easier than explaining. The rehearsal itself was surreal. Standing there, watching Tara and Matt together, practicing the timing, the positions, the way they would walk, where they would stand. Like it was all already set. At one point, Matt glanced at me. Just for a second. There was something in his expression I couldn't fully read. Not guilt exactly. Not confidence either. Just something unresolved. He looked away first. Of course he did. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. Not because I was panicking. Just because my mind wouldn't settle. Every small detail kept replaying. Every moment I had ignored or brushed off, lining up in a way that felt impossible to unsee now. But by morning, I had already decided. I would get through it. One day. Smile, stand where I'm told, give the speech, leave. That's it. No scenes. No drama. No confrontation. Just survive it. The ceremony itself was exactly what everyone expected. Beautiful, controlled, emotional in all the right ways. People cried. People smiled. Photos were taken. Vows were exchanged. I stood there next to Tara, holding my position, doing everything I was supposed to do. And for a while, it worked. I kept everything contained. Until the reception. Because that's where things started to crack. And not because of something big or obvious. Because of something small. Something careless. Something I wasn't supposed to hear. And once I did, there was no putting it back. That's when everything changed. The reception started like everything else that day. Perfect. Controlled. Loud in a happy way. Music, laughter, people moving between tables, waitstaff carrying trays like it was all rehearsed. I stayed in my role. Smiling when people looked at me, thanking guests, answering small talk questions I didn't care about. It was almost easier now. Like once the ceremony was over, I could just fade into the background. That was the plan. Just get through it. Speeches were coming up soon. I knew that. I had something prepared. Safe. Polite. Nothing real in it. Just the kind of words people expect to hear. I remember standing near the bar, holding a drink I hadn't touched, when someone stepped up beside me. Hey, he said, casual. I turned and recognized him after a second. Jack Bond. One of Matt's friends from the gym. I had seen him a few times before, nothing major. He was already a little drunk. You could hear it in his voice. Crazy day, huh? He said, grinning. Yeah, I replied. Big day. He laughed and took a sip of his drink, then leaned in slightly like he was about to share something funny. Still wild how that worked out, he said. I didn't react right away. What do you mean? He smirked, like he thought we were both in on the same joke. You know, from you to her, he said. Man really upgraded. He laughed. I didn't. Something in my chest tightened, but I kept my voice steady. I don't think that's funny. He waved it off. No, I mean, don't take it like that. It's just, everyone saw it coming. Everyone. What are you talking about? I asked. He shrugged, still smiling, completely unaware of what he was actually saying. They were already getting close before you guys ended, he said. Like, way before. The noise around us didn't stop, but it felt like it did. Like, everything dropped out for a second. Before. I repeated. Yeah, he said, nodding. Matt was all confused for a while, you know? Talking about you, talking about her. It was messy. Messy. That doesn't sound like something that just happened after, I said. He paused for half a second, like he was finally realizing maybe he was saying too much. But it didn't stop him. I mean, they were texting a lot, he added. Hanging out sometimes. Nothing official, but, you know. I didn't say anything. Because there it was. Clear. Simple. Confirmed. Not vague. Not implied. Before. Not after. Before. Jack must have noticed something change in my face, because his expression shifted slightly. Hey, I didn't mean, he started. I didn't wait for him to finish. I need some air, I said, even though I didn't move. He nodded, awkward now, and stepped away. I stood there, completely still, holding onto the edge of the bar like it was the only solid thing in the room. Everything lined up in that moment. Every hesitation. Every excuse. Every small thing I had pushed aside because it didn't feel big enough to confront. It wasn't small. It never was. I had just been the only one pretending it was. I don't remember deciding what to do next. I just remember hearing my name being called. Tess, you're up next, someone said. The maid of honor speech. Of course. I walked toward the front like I was on autopilot. People were smiling, watching, waiting. Tara looked at me expectantly, like this was just another part of the day going exactly how she wanted it to. I picked up the mic. For a second, I just stood there, looking at her, looking at him, thinking about everything I had held in, everything I had let go. Every moment I chose silence because it felt easier than being the problem. And then I started speaking. I said the beginning the way I had planned. I thanked everyone for coming. Talked about growing up with Tara. Shared a couple of safe, neutral memories. People smiled. Laughed in the right places. It felt normal. Until it didn't. I paused. Took a breath. And then I said, Tara has always had a way of getting what she wants. The room stayed quiet, but the energy shifted slightly. I kept going. Even when it already belonged to someone else. You could feel it now. The change. Subtle, but real. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't sound angry. If anything, I sounded calm. That's what made it land. I dated Matt for a year, I said. And I thought I understood how that ended. No one moved. I thought they got together after, I continued. That's what I told myself. That it was bad timing or something that just happened. I looked at Tara. She wasn't smiling anymore. I found out tonight that it didn't happen after, I said. It was already happening before. Silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind where people don't know if they should react. I hope this marriage is built on honesty, I added. Because it didn't start that way. And then I stopped. No dramatic exit. No yelling. I just put the mic down and stepped away. For a second, no one moved. Then the room filled with noise again, but it wasn't the same kind. It was scattered. Confused. Conversations starting and stopping at the same time. I didn't wait around to see what happened next. I walked out. Out of the reception, out of the building, into the cold air. I didn't cry. That's the part people expect, but it didn't happen. I just stood there, breathing, feeling something settle in a way it hadn't before. Like everything I had been holding finally had somewhere to go. I left that night without saying goodbye. 6 months have passed since then. I haven't spoken to Tara. Not once. My mom still calls me, but it's different now. Careful. Measured. Like she's choosing her words so she doesn't trigger another situation. My dad keeps things short. Neutral. They've both told me, in their own ways, that what I did was wrong. That wasn't the place for it. You humiliated her. You could have handled it privately. Maybe they're right. Maybe I could have. But no one ever gave me a space to say it privately. Every time I tried to push back, I was told to move on. To be the bigger person. To keep the peace. So I did. Until I didn't. As for Tara and Matt, they're still together. From what I hear, everything looks fine on the surface. Photos, events, the same kind of life they were building before. But I also know some people who were there that night don't look at them the same anymore. And me? I don't know if I feel better. I feel clearer. Like I finally stopped pretending something didn't happen when it did. But there are moments, usually late at night, where I replay it. The speech. The timing. The way everything went silent. And I wonder if I crossed a line I can't uncross. If I didn't just expose the truth, but also destroy something that could have stayed contained. So yeah, was I wrong for saying it out loud at her wedding, or was that the only moment I had left where anyone would actually hear me?